Yo, 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 Joburg! Welcome to episode 242, a missing Sunbow episode. My name is Steve. I'm joined by the South Africans. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Paul. This is Paul,
Paul.
and I'm ready to rock and roll. And I'm joined by who else?
You're joined by Robert, another South African. Hello, guys.
Hey, the love and scoop, Paul. And yes, today it's all about the latest, most exciting development in GI Joe comic book publishing, and that's GI Joe Saturday Morning Adventures. Hey, guys, what was your first impression of this book? It kind of came out of nowhere, but it's kind of been what people have been wanting for a great deal of time now.
Yeah. Honestly, I just thought it was a variant cover. When I first saw it, I was just like, oh, that's a cute variant cover. You know, there'll be another GI Joe book with like one or two actual GI Joes in, and you know. But then, it wasn't that. It was something much cooler.
So much more.
And long time coming. That was like, when I opened the pages, I was like, I'm sure they've done this before. No, they haven't. This is amazing. You know?
Finally, a spiritual successor, not even a spiritual successor, an actual successor to the Sunbow cartoon, the much beloved Sunbow cartoon. It feels like a no-brainer, but they've taken their sweet time to get something like this in the pipeline. Rob, what were your opening thoughts, my man?
I think it's crazy, yeah, that they didn't do this sooner. Like, they've tried other ideas with comic books, you know, like their own takes, alternate universes, obviously continuing the original comic books from Marvel with Larry Hama. I think, yeah, it's way overdue, and I think it was a lot of fun to read. It makes me want to keep watching the cartoons, actually, or going back, because I think I still have a lot of. I mean, I've watched basically up to where Scoop gets introduced. I know a little bit about Metalhead, but I haven't finished the Duke series.
Wow.
Did you ever dip as far as Extreme? I think when we were kids, we used to watch
When
a
we were
little.
kids, we watched it on TV, yes,
KTV.
but I haven't gone
Yeah.
back to it. You know, like since it being on television. So I think it's definitely the Sunbow. I think is definitely more memorable to me, at least, from having watched all of it, as opposed to not having watched basically any of Duke and a little bit of Extreme growing up. But I think this was a lot of fun. It feels like a cartoon episode.
It definitely is a guilty pleasure. At this stage, I think we can all do with a little bit of the lighter side of G.I. Joe versus Cobra, and the Sunbow cartoon definitely taps into that, and that is what this cartoon, or this, well, it's a Freudian slip, this comic book is all about. It's about tapping into that nostalgia. It does some interesting things that the cartoon never quite did, and we'll get into that. But as I say, we're all about Saturday Morning Adventures today, and I am not going to be as image heavy in this podcast because, hey, it is a podcast. It's all about the audio. And also, since this is a current comic book continuity, I feel less comfortable, I don't know, flashing images up electronically. So the first 5 pages were released as preview material, and I'll be showing that off. But as for the rest, well, you're just going to have to buy it yourself.
Go grab it. I think, I mean, from the initial impressions I'm hearing here, it sounds like we're all endorsing this. So, yeah, go buy it, guys. It's 4 issues coming out over 4 months.
I'm so glad to hear that.
I'm really glad to hear, too, it's only 4 issues. I mean, like, I want to finish the story right now.
Because I gotta say, like, when you and it's not a major, this is not a spoiler, okay, but when you get to the end of the book, it kind of happens so suddenly that you're like, oh, okay, maybe this just was like a hokey little one shot or something, you know. I felt like that at the end of it. I was like, oh, you know, I was hoping there would be more, and I think I even asked you guys on the group or in the chat. I was like, are there going to be more of these? Because I really enjoyed this one. But something I want to
No,
mention,
just stop with that. Shit.
and
the end.
something I want to mention that I think is important to mention is I really love the artwork. I mean, yes, it's Sunbow, but I love how they captured it in the comic book, like in the sense that it feels like stills from the animated series, and that's very impressive.
They use the surely just for basing the art style, they just use the sort of character models from the cartoon. Destro has eyebrows, of course. Yeah, man.
But it's like
Everyone looks
so.
as they should be.
Yeah, and it's so there. It's not even like an approximation of it. It's pretty much on point. I mean, I could sit here and really scrutinize, and the only thing I could say that's different between this art and the art on the cartoon is that this art is consistently better from page to page. You know,
Right.
I hate that cover though that we're looking at now. It's that no offense to the artist, I just really don't love this cover that they did with Destro in the tank and Baroness and
Well,
dopey
let's
looking
talk
dude.
credits then, so
Yeah.
that you can flame whoever the artist was. Paul, you're so mean. This
Just a
episode,
cover. Yeah.
this issue was written by Eric Burnham, who has done a number of these cartoon to print conversions. He certainly did quite a few for Ghostbusters. He's done a Beast Wars comic book. So this is very much his wheelhouse. Dan Schoenig is the artist. So Paul, all heap of praise onto Dan for his
So good.
high fidelity to the comic book. His high fidelity to the cartoon model sheets. Louis Antonio Delgado was the colorist. Neil Utake, the letterer. Tom Waltz is the editor, or the group editor. Megan Brown is the editor on this issue, and Diana Davis, the research specialist. I'm sure she's overjoyed to work on a cartoon conversion like this, because that is definitely her happy place too. Now, as far as a synopsis would go, this is straight out of the cartoon playbook, man. Like, this is probably the most cartoony cartoon concept a Sunbow episode could ever have had, because it involves like mythology. Those were always the kind of the hokiest of the hokies. You had episodes that dealt with very realistic things in Sunbow. You had episodes that dealt with magic conches that made men bow to your will. This is similar to that in that sense that Cobra Commander has had Zartan steal a artifact from a museum. This artifact is in fact hiding, as Destro puts it, the lamp of Aladdin. Because Cobra Commander blasts it open, and inside he finds Aladdin's magical lamp. And the fact that this is Aladdin's lamp just tells me that this is kind of like some hybrid between the mythological world and the real world, because like surely it would have had a more historically correct name in this reality than calling it the Lamp of Aladdin, unless the stories were all true. You know, the Aladdin and the magic lamp, like basically children's fairy tale. It's
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Sunbow's
it's kind
always
of
had a
wild because
precedent
also
to that.
other
Yeah.
people would have used it surely over time. I mean, there's
Exactly.
only one of the persons who owned it. You know, if this was a historically accurate thing.
Yeah, it would be the mystical lamp of Agrabah, or whatever you want to call it, or the Persian lamp of three wishes, or the genie's lamp. But to call it the lamp of Aladdin is very amusing. Anyways, Cobra Commander uses this to grant himself some wishes, because it does absolutely conjure up a genie. But what does he wish for, gentlemen? It's hilarious. A squad of battle android troopers that are gigantic.
Make my monsters grow.
But what's very telling
Couldn't help
is
myself.
it seems like it's Destro who's ultimately pulling the strings, which is so typically Sunbow, because it's Destro who whispers in Cobra Commander's ear, like, "Brr, brr, 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 brr. This is what you should wish for." So I'm thinking at least some way down the line in this four-parter, Destro's going to kind of seize control himself. That this is, that the commander's being manipulated by his underlings, and it's just so typically Sunbow, isn't it? Destro's got his side hustle going on.
Yeah, and he's as usual. He's actually giving Cobra Commander his best ideas as well, which is
So Cobra
fun.
send the first of these gigantic battle android troopers to raid GI Joe headquarters, and the Joes are able to swat this one by flying a Sky Striker into its leg. And gentlemen, this is another theory that I've consistently held about Sunbow, that Ace invariably always gets shot down. Like, of all the people who jump into Sky Strikers and take to the skies, Ace is the one who has got the worst Sky Striker loss ratio because it's, of course, his Sky Striker which plows into the leg of this battle android trooper, forcing it down.
And I kind of like that because that's a bit of a
Hilarious.
meta thing as well. So
There's
No,
so much
that's-
meta stuff going on in this comic book.
and I love that. This was just a personal giggle for me, but I love the design of the genie. It is so because there isn't a character sheet or character model sheet of that for them to work off. So they definitely had to distill the style from the cartoon, and they got it right. And I also think that he kind of floats between being almost a DBZ looking character as well, which I dig.
It's
But that
funny,
was
if I'm
just
to
like-
be critical, I'm not terribly in love with that design. It does kind of break from that style in a sense. I don't know. Does
I
it?
felt
Does
it totally worked. Yeah, I felt it worked because it looks a bit like if you squint a bit, it looks like Destro with a Borky, with a goatee.
with a goatee? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose. But what is
So-
very authentic to cartoons of the era is the effects surrounding the genie. Some
Oh, I
kind
love
of
that.
like sparkly
Shimmer.
stuff that I don't know how they
Yeah.
did it in comic
Ooh, ooh,
in
ooh.
cartoons of the era. It's kind
Well,
of
let
an
me tell you.
overlay that's. Oh, go ahead, Paul. Educate
It's
us.
foil. It's foil. You know
What?
foil? Like
Foil?
yeah, it's foil. So because remember these cells are shot, they're photographed. So what they do
Yes.
is they just hit so they hit a light on that and they record footage of that and then they just cut it into the episode. They mask it into the episode, or they just layer it over the episode, over the cell what's it film. Yeah.
Well, it feels
cool
like a very
effect.
authentic effect to the medium. And looking at
Oh,
it
I love it.
now, like, is there a kind of filter applied to the art to kind of make it look like an animation cell?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely. When I did the thumbnail for this episode, I actually enhanced it even more.
Yeah.
But I played around because I had one or two artworks that are like kind of flat 2D like this. And what you do is you would like put in a little bit of. I mean, this is how I would do it. I'm not saying this is how they did it, but there's definitely a little bit of a noise filter applied to this, and I think they've also kind of dulled the colors. Like you do like a little bit of a pass, you just copy the image over and then you sort of dull the colors a little bit that it gets that sort of photograph
Slightly
look.
washed out, like we're watching it on
Yeah.
CRT television. Well, the issue wraps up with Cobra Commander sending out another 3 of the 5 Bat squad to various global destinations, one in Tokyo, one in Paris, and one in Washington, D.C. So we are probably going to have a kind of a globe-spanning adventure over the course of these next 3 issues.
Oh, I love this comment. Sorry. Chaplin's
What comment
assistant
is that?
Motopod says, Ace, the biggest enemy of the American taxpayer. Definitely.
Well, the funny thing is, and this is another little bit of meta, that Scarlet calls it out. Like she actually says to Ace, you know, I hope you can take out the next battle android or giant bat, mega bat, they call it, without losing a Sky Striker this time. So she's hanging a lantern on the fact that, yes, his track record is terrible. I love
and
it.
she's
I love
kind
it
of
so.
being a biatch about it too, which is kind of cool because you know
He deserves it, man.
You never get that static, you know, in the show unless it's between like Leatherneck and Gung Ho or something.
And how do you feel
Oh,
about
he's
like the
bad.
choice of characters that they chose to put in the comic book? It feels very much like the Sunbow era.
Well, it tends to span multiple eras. And the reason I say that is we don't have Serpentor. Season 2 of Sunbow is dominated by Serpentor. We've got some of the trappings of Season 2. I'm going to scroll up and just make mention of the fact that, like, it seems like the opening shot, the establisher of, like, the Cobra Temple somewhere in the Pacific Ocean is pulled straight from the Season 2 Sunbow opening. This is the 1986 series opener, where G.I. Joe is assaulting some kind of island fortress. There's a Terradrome with a giant snake head on top of it. It's very Sarge heavy. It's very Serpentor heavy. We don't have Sarge in this because I'm sure they would love to, but the guy's got a likeness rights that is probably being held by multiple companies at the moment, and IDW haven't thrown their hat into the ring. But with Serpentor, they've decided to lean on Cobra Commander instead. So it's Sunbow Season 1 baddies. We don't have Mindbender yet. That's not to say they won't use him in future issues.
Oh, he's
But
coming. He must be
okay.
coming.
Well, then he must be coming. But we don't have him in this issue. So it's very much Zot and the Dreadnoks, not Xandar or Zarana. So the sort of Season 2 Dreadnoks are not into the mix. And Cobra Commander, Destro, Baroness. That's our Cobra High Command. And then you flip onto the Joe side, and while they are predominantly featuring the Season 1 Joe team, like Alpine Bazooka, Ace, Duke, Scarlet, and not so much Flint, Lady J, those guys, they do nevertheless have the 1986 guys in the mix. Like I spotted Beachhead in a group shot. Mainframe gets a speaking role. Sci-Fi has a moment where they
I love that.
they're dismantling the Mega Bat, and they're like, man, like, why would they make the microchips huge?
Nah.
Like, unless they actually just enlarge the whole thing, which is, that isn't the technical way of doing this. You would still have the components like miniaturized. So someone must have just enlarged the entire bat, and that kind of speaks to magic, perhaps. I don't know. I'm terribly paraphrasing.
There is
Mr.
one
Siegel
little-
fine.
There is one little, there's two little snags that I picked up in this issue. And I don't know if we want to talk about the snags right now. The first thing I want to, and this is not a terrible thing. This is just something I've noticed when I actually had to scrutinize the book for this episode. The image that you had on the screen now was of the Terradrome with the big cobra head and all that. And that was drawn in a very sort of comic book style. That wasn't done in the sort of familiar Sunbow background painted style. Now, if you want to be really anal retentive, had they managed to pull that off, I think they would have made this even more convincing.
What,
That
make
doesn't
all the
mean that
backgrounds
it's-
painted?
Yeah, well, like Sunbow cartoons were, they had a mix of sort of gouache painted backgrounds for scenery, for mountains and the castles and that kind of stuff. And then, sometimes they would have a cell drawn version of the background, which is what you often see in the interior shots here. So that's the first thing. But I mean, listen, I'm mentioning that because I feel like our listeners would appreciate that we've actually looked at the comic this much and this hard. I don't actually have an issue with it. Just think it would have been a nice touch. The second snag that I have is this is not the first time Cobra has enlarged something. I just want to put that out there in the Sunbow universe. There is a very distinct, or there's an episode where a certain bird gets very big. I don't know if you guys recall Polly being a giant. So,
And also
I'm
giant fruit and veg.
yes.
So this would round out the third time Cobra's done some enlarging.
I'm starting to wonder if Destro is not as original as he likes to think he is. Hey, I wonder what we should wish for. Hey, Cobra Commander, we should make something really big. That's a brilliant idea. No wonder
This
these
worked out
clowns can't take
before.
over the world.
It's like he had two major hits, that being, the Weather Dominator and the Mass Device, and then the rest have all been kind of B-sides.
Yeah, they're on the billboards, but they're not on the top 10. You know what I mean? So.
No doubt. But Rob, you were going to say something about character choice, and then I jumped all over that. But did
No,
you have a
I was
point?
more I was trying to draw out what you guys thought of the character choices. Actually, but yeah, I think it does feel very. I was just going to say it feels very Sunbow. Like the characters they've chosen to feature. Snake Eyes is there, but he's not
Yes.
talking. He's not a featured character, but he is inside the panels.
in
You
Sunbow.
know he's there. But also, I think Quick Kick is there, and he was also a later edition, wasn't he? Or at least
He
he is
kind
in
of
a
rounded
wider
out-
shot.
He did round out the trio of Alpine Bazooka, and then they kind of found him in the snowy wastes during the Pyramids of Darkness.
And so, Shipwreck's here too. I saw him in a wide shot, but he's not featured so much in this issue or this episode.
Hopefully they'll get around
Also-
to it, because a kind of Sunbow-inspired comic book that doesn't give Shipwreck a moment to shine would be a shame.
Yeah.
But it's coming. We're definitely, just to answer a question in the chats from Darren Cobb, Flint is coming, hopefully with added Lady J. And yes, they do name drop Flint, that in fact he is, I think he's in France or he's elsewhere. And so they're going to pull in all their members from around the world to address these mega bat threats in Tokyo, in Paris, and in Washington.
Also, so happy they have sci-fi in this issue. Like
Yeah.
that was really great for me as a sci-fi fanboy, being my first GI Joe and all. It was just cool to see him in the comic. I was not expecting sci-fi. I was expecting the usual crowd, like the Altone or something. So when I saw sci-fi, I actually kind of went, "Yee." I'll do it again for everybody. Yee.
Well, look, they're not going to do something unexpected like pull in a non-Sunbow character, or would they? Do you think we might see like an Outback?
That would be interesting.
Maybe they could
I
do
would
that
very-
in later miniseries, but I feel like at least with this one, they're kind of trying to very much lean into like this is Sunbow, from the art style to the outlandish plot that Cobra comes up with, and then also the response of G.I. Joe. Because the episode, it feels like a proper setup for a miniseries. Like there's 3 things happening
Yeah.
across the world, and they have to go and respond to these things. Cobra will have the upper hand for a bit, but in the end, Joe will win out the day. So it feels very heavily Sunbow.
Well, spoiler
Really?
warning, but this comic book series does come out on the eve of IDW's losing of the license. And I'm pretty sure they had it in the pipeline long before the negotiation, to retain the license probably fell through or lapsed, or whatever the circumstances surrounding it were. So this comic book was always going to be something that existed, and perhaps would have had a future under the IDW publisher had they retained the G.I. Joe license. But now it's kind of, it's a four issue glimpse at what could have been. I don't know if there'll be an ongoing series.
I hope
But-
they can be. It's
The flip side to that is, if there's a buck to be made, someone's going to make that buck. Like, even if it's not through IDW, if there's a thirst for this stuff, perhaps the new publisher will absolutely just lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels take the idea that IDW instituted and just run with it. Like,
and
yeah,
run with
we'll
it, yeah.
keep doing it. We're in fact hire the same artist because he did a bang-up job, same writer. Let's go.
Because I mean, similar things have happened before. I mean, if you think, independent of publisher, like if you own the license for something and things have been published for this license previously, you have carte blanche. You can reprint any and all of that has come out before. I mean, IDW has
Yeah.
done that with reprinting all of the Marvel run of G.I. Joe. Marvel has done that when they acquired the licenses for Star Wars. They reprinted a lot of the expanded universe stuff in kind of
from
like
Dark Horse.
Legends volumes from Dark Horse.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
even, I mean, it's kind of interesting, but at the end of Dark Horse's ownership of the Star Wars license, they had also actually started their own ongoing new Star Wars series that was set just after A New Hope. And then when Marvel acquired the license, they also then set their own comic book series at that same time period. I mean, I suppose it's an easy jumping off point. You would kind of set it there without, kind of like moving forward or moving back, and not having to think too hard about, what kind of stories you're going to tell. But I feel like if this is popular enough, whoever gets the license next can hopefully keep it going. And I'd absolutely love to see that, because I like that there can be the main series, the Larry Harmon series, and there can be these ancillary series that kind of feed into other versions of G.I. Joe that people have really enjoyed, like the cartoon. I mean, it's so good. It even ends with like a little PSA as well, which I absolutely love, like a 1-page, public
And that
service
PSA is
announcement.
great.
It's so
Oh,
good.
man. It's basically a kid pissed off in his room and about to kind of, I don't know, rage post something on the internet, and Mainframe like hangs his head through the kid's window and says, before you say something mean on the internet, like just think about, like what does he say? Your impact, your
internet,
words can have a huge impact, and the
yeah,
internet's a toxic
it's a
place.
powerful tool for communication, but we don't need to attack others for a difference of opinion, especially over a story that can make us the bad guy in our own story. I don't want that
Which-
mainframe.
So meta. It's definitely wagging the finger at angry fanboys, and I know I can get pretty worked up from time to time. This
we
is
all?
very, very
Don't we all?
pointed at us. But there are a few other Easter eggs that I want to just sink our teeth into. The stolen artifact, before Cobra Commander zaps it with his laser and breaks it apart to reveal the Aladdin's lamp, was in fact an art asset pulled from The Gods Below, which is the episode in which
So trippy.
Cobra raids a Egyptian temple or tomb or pyramid, and Cobra Commander finds this, I don't know, this jeweled golden artifact, and I mean, it gets pretty trippy indeed. Like the Joes have an
love this.
encounter with ancient Egyptian gods, and there's this kind of like cursed gold plot line where everything needs to be returned to this temple, otherwise the gods will kind of rain down on Earth. But yeah, basically, I can't believe I noticed it. And my Sunbow knowledge isn't that great, but I saw this episode in the lead up to recording this podcast, and I was like, huh. That's exactly the same art asset.
Yeah, one of those Leonardo DiCaprio moments from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. you were that meme. You're sitting on your couch holding your beer and you're pointing at the screen. You're like, that.
Damn. Yeah, I thought you were going to tell me I've got a shed with a flamethrower in it. Perfect for break-ins. Anyways, I just thought I was being very clever there. Also, I was delighted to see that the sound effects used when the lasers are being fired, like they have the sequence where the Sky Strikers will take to the sky and everyone's shooting rather hopelessly at the Megabat. And what onomatopoeic expression do they use? What sound effect does the letter employ? Anyone want to guess?
I hate it when you do this because I go blank.
Sorry. Well,
Come on, save us.
it's too chintzy to actually be a valid guess. It's pew. All the lasers go
pew.
pew pew,
Pew, pew, pew.
which is also very meta because that's not the sound effect that the lasers ever made. That's children at play. In fact, it's not even. It's adults.
It's a memed thing, yeah.
We're aping children at play. We're sending it up, going pew pew
Yeah.
pew pew pew. Oh dear.
I love.
so old.
So Hans Chow mentioned this in the comments. GI Joe Infestation was actually an excellent usage of the Tulu mythos and GI Joe. I would love to get into that because I believe it was actually quite fun. So, but also bear in mind, in Sunbow, the sort of Tulu influence does come out actually in the form of an episode that stars Lady J and Destro, and they go to Lady J inherits like a mansion or a castle, and inside there's like a sort of a beast, a creature, an old god, an old one, and that's very much pulled from H.P. Lovecraft's books. I think it's not In the Mouth of Madness. It's one of them. Anyway, so Hans, go and check that out, dude, because that was very, very cool. My question is, do you think with all of the meta reaching out there and, sort of the opportunities that this kind of style of comic book could provide, do you think we'll see these guys? And I'm talking about Mask, ladies and gentlemen.
Mobile Assault Strike Command. I think that concept had its time in the sun, and that was in the Revelations book. I don't know if they're going to revisit the well. Like, let's do G.I. Joe for G.I. Joe's sake with only G.I. Joe. Thanks.
I kind of
Much
feel
as I like
this
Mask.
yeah. Oh, no. As much as you like Mask, yeah.
No, that's where I'm ending.
That's it. As much as I
Okay,
like
no,
it.
because I think this is the secret sauce. I think if Mask was introduced into GI Joe in a sort of a Sunbow kind of vein with this art style, I think that is the secret sauce. That is the way that it's going to work. I think trying to do it any other way probably wouldn't be as effective, and it's been proven that it wasn't as effective. But I feel like you bring Miles I keep wanting to call him Miles Mayhem.
And you'd be right.
But excellent. So you bring Miles Mayhem in, and you
Keep
bring
wanting to use his actual name.
our dudes from Mask, and you bring them all into the Sunbow episode style of the GI Joe comics, and I think you have a formula for success there. I'd be surprised if we didn't see Mask sort of stick their heads into this somewhere if they carry on doing it.
I have
So-
2 lost Easter eggs that I'd love to just hang a lantern on. So Roadblock is running to his Sky Striker, and he says in his sublime rhyme style, "If you can fly, get your butts in the sky," which is delightful because it rhymes, of course, but is also delightful because it really makes a point of the fact that in Sunbow everyone can fly a Sky Striker. So, like, what was the point of that, Roadblock? Like, if you're asking people if they know how to fly, or you're asking people if they have their own Sky Striker personalized and waiting on the deck, like, if you can fly, get your butts in the sky. Very, 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 like the word that we tend to use on this podcast, meta. And another thing that I'd like to just point out, I think it's the first time we've ever seen in Sunbow style the Battle Android Trooper with a weapon attachment arm instead of just the standard Viper gun, which the Bat
Yeah.
is always seen wielding. Because the second
Finally.
time they send out a Mega Bat, he's got the laser attachment. I don't know, whatever the conical thing is. So they've actually used a bit of the actual toy accessory piece. And it seems very much modeled after that accessory piece as well. Like, they haven't changed it in any material way. Okay, it comes to a slightly finer point, but it's just cool to see that synergy between the cartoon, the comic book, and even the actual action figure. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too, because you kind of look at that and you go, "Oh, I want to play with my toys now," because that's what these things are supposed to do, right? Yeah.
Well, it's also a total missed opportunity. I mean, maybe it would have been challenging to animate or to work up the design sheets for a Battle Android Trooper having 3 different attachment arms. Like, I suppose your likelihood of animation errors just multiplies at that stage. I mean, I don't know how exactly it works, but I suppose it's easier just to have the Bat have one standard appearance and one standard armament.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, like if it was me, I'd be like trying to find any other way to draw anything other than hands, on them, holding
Yeah, I
things,
suppose
because
hands
that's just
is
always a
tough.
pain to do. Yeah.
It would have been cool
and-
if the Battle Android Troopers taking on Sarge in his introduction had the claw attachment. 'Cause that's so much more of a visceral, like, close quarters weapon.
Yeah, and
Which
it's
you
also
could then
more roboty.
completely trounce with his swagger stick. I mean, he's weaponized a baton.
Yeah.
So does
I've
anyone
weaponized
have
a bit.
any kind of other points of interest, or can we kind of close the chapter on this first issue by just kind of bookending our personal favorite moments and maybe something that we liked a little less?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
can definitely do that.
Yeah,
I
totally.
think we've sung the praises. We're very much on board with this concept.
Well, do you want to kick us off, Rob? What did you like most about issue 1?
What I liked most is it got the tone. It felt like an episode of the cartoon, and it kind of like it just goes into it. It doesn't worry about setting anything up other than just giving you the cartoon, essential jingle, GI Joe code name, etc. And you just go straight into it, as they did in the episodes themselves. Like, you just go straight to the action. You get going. And I love that it feels like an episode of Sunbow cartoon. I think probably the only criticism I have is that the ending. It usually the episodes are much, well, maybe not better, but they always seem to end on some sort of like crazy cliffhanger. And this one
Yeah.
doesn't. It's just like, okay, we've set up where we're going to go next. Okay, GI Joe, we're splitting up. They've got 3 locations. We've got to stop them. So I'm hoping the second issue has a proper cliffhanger. I think that's the only thing that didn't feel right to me, was there's no cliffhanger at the end, even if it's a stupid cliffhanger.
Rob, didn't you hear the musical sting and the swelling when Cobra Commander announced that he's got 3 mega bats dispatched to various parts of the world, and he wants what is it, $5 billion paid into his account or something like that?
I did. It feels like the stakes are very high, and we are going to go somewhere. But I wanted more of a cliffhanger. I wanted something that just, like, oh God, will the Joes get out of this? Which I always or always remember feeling, at least from watching, the episodes of the cartoons. Like, oh, how's Lady J going to get out of this? She's falling down a cliff. Oh, she just fires a spear. Okay, but still, it was pretty exciting.
Did you hear the kind of the voice cast in your head as you were reading this?
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful.
Speaking of the voice cast, quickly, just as a quick segue, I started following the lady who does Lady J's voice acting. Can't for the life of mine now think of what her name is. I'm so sorry, because I keep thinking of Lady J's real name, Alison J. Burnett. But she's really, really cool. She's like really into GI Joes as toys and stuff as well, because she actually does quite a bit of toy photography.
What?
And so, yeah, she does. Like, we should probably put her handle in the description.
Mary
for this
Lewis?
episode. Yes, I'll check it out now. Anyway, long story short, it's just it's funny how that happened, because
Mary McDonald Lewis. There you go.
And I started following her account because it was suggested to me on Insta. Immediately, this kind of like circular thing happened, where you do start hearing these characters' voices again. I was just in a very Sunbow space, and that's one of the things I liked about this. I mean, Rob touched on it, and there's not much more I can say about it. Not much more I can say about what Rob has said, other than I felt like it hit all the right notes with Sunbow for me, except for the little sort of niggly point that I made about the backgrounds feeling needing to be painted more like the Sunbow show, to be 100% truly authentic. Not that that's super important. And I also liked that this book it managed to be kind of tongue-in-cheek without being hokey. And I have a lot of respect for the writer for doing that, because a lot of guys would probably lean into making this very hokey, very cheesy, very on the nose. And they did, but in the coolest way they could have done it, in a way that is respectful to the reader. And I love that. I thought that was very well handled. Yeah, and I want more. I must have more. I need more. This is a kind of comic book where, like, if somebody goes, what is G.I. Joe? I can actually give them this comic book to read. They don't have to know anything about G.I. Joe. They would pick up some of the vibe from just reading this comic book. And I really dig that versus a lot of the modern stuff. The modern stuff, you really have to pay attention to what's going on. If you guys get my meaning.
Well, yes, this has no hope of, like, an ongoing continuity. It doesn't really import much in terms of continuity. It's because of the episodic nature of the cartoon. Like, everything had a base level, and you'd be returned to that by the end of the episode. Unless it was a 2-parter, in which case it would be returned to the base level by the end of the second episode. Nothing changes the status quo. So this is absolutely a continuity that you can pick up and read at any juncture. They could easily make more of these, and they just kind of stand alone as one-shots. And I've always enjoyed a G.I. Joe one-shot, because you don't have to kind of bend your mind thinking like, hang on, wait, this guy is a clone of that guy. This guy died and was resurrected. I don't know what happened to this guy. I don't know if this is the actual Snake Eyes who served in Vietnam. Was this some other kind of Snake Eyes? Like, what? Yeah, man, this is a very easy read.
And sorry, guys, just to correct myself, I'm such a poopball. This Lady J account, I keep thinking for some reason this is the voice actor. It's not, because guess what? The cartoon is like 30 years old. There's no way that this is the woman who does the voice acting for Lady J. But it is cool to see that there's a very cool Lady J fan out there who is also an awesome GI Joe toy photographer. So I just want to put that out there. We should probably still put her
wishful
name in the
thinking.
description below anyway. Yeah, I got a little bit excited there. Sorry, guys.
And
it's
when
been
you
one of
made
those
me
weeks.
Google Mary McDonald Lewis, I found a picture of her with exactly the same pixie cut hairstyle that the current classified Lady J action figure has. I'm like, wow, is that possibly a reference to the voice actress? Possibly. Anyway, I mean, they didn't go with a mullet. They didn't go with like a shaved head. They went with this kind of swept pixie cut, which is absolutely how Mary McDonald Lewis seems to style her hair. Anyway, coinky dink, maybe. Maybe life imitating art. Maybe that's the sound of Lady J's hairstyle.
But coming to my favorite part of this comic book, I got to say, I just really loved us running into sci-fi, doing stuff that you think sci-fi is supposed to do but doesn't actually do. He's like a laser specialist, very much like Grand Slam, and here he is like being the IT guy, and I'm okay with that because that's what he ended up being in the cartoon anyway, and I enjoyed that. That was cool. I really enjoyed seeing him. I was not expecting to see old sci-fi. And I suppose second best to that is Scarlet actually ribbing Ace for his flying skills. That was actually very cool. That set a
Long
specific
overdue.
tone. Yeah. And it also set a tone for this book. I don't know if you guys can agree with that, but when I read that, I was like, okay, this is like, this is
Didn't the
not
females
like,
always give the males stick in the cartoon?
Not in that style. It would,
Oh.
you see, yeah, in the 80s, like, I think if women had to give men stick like that in a comic book or in a cartoon series, they would be seen as like really bitchy, and it would be like, you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be seen, because, like, people are stupid about stuff. But like with today's sort of sensibilities, you read that and you're just like, yeah, she's actually got him by the nuts, and that's
I don't know what you're
respectable
talking
because
about,
a guy.
Paul. I think it's absolutely in the style of something Scarlet would have said in the cartoon.
I just feel it's more serious. I don't feel it's as playful. It's not a throwaway line. She's not like going, Ace, try to bring it back this time. Blink, blink, cute, I'm a girl. She's like, she's basically like said to him like, hey dude, like get your shit in order, kind of thing. That.
Yeah, I've got
there's a
her
difference
line
there in
right
tone.
here. Ace says, it'd be a lot more impressive if I hadn't sent one to the scrap heap. He's talking about the second Megabat. And Scarlet says to that, and you had to destroy another Sky Striker to do it, I hear. Which
Exactly.
is a bit of
But her
snot,
face is
which
Sorry.
I think is completely germane to the original appearance of Scarlet in the cartoon series. But hey, Paul, you feel
I
like
don't
she
know,
wouldn't have gotten away with that in the 80s?
I think the way that she would have to say it would be just like, haha, Ace, you crashed the plane, you suck, haha. It would have to be like passive aggressive and stupid. So I'm glad that they didn't do that for this. Because
Alright.
I don't know, it's a weird thing. Like, it's just something I can pick up, or that maybe it's just something that affects me. But I just felt like the tone was just elevated by that line, and by her pointing it out the way that she did, and the fact that she wasn't actually making a joke about it. She was like, yeah, you suck at flying, dude. Stick to cards.
Get good.
Well, for my part, I'm grateful for a comic book series under the GI Joe banner that does take itself a little less seriously, because I think sometimes we need a little tonic I'm all for GI Joe being taken seriously and it being a gritty, realistic story with real stakes, and you know that an absence of that ethical bankruptcy that Larry talks about when he says like you have to have death in a comic book about soldiers because to not have it would be morally bankrupt. Well, this is a kids cartoon and it's pitching itself there, but it's a kids cartoon for adults. It's hitting our nostalgia buzz, so it's going to stay true to that style. And in staying true to that style, everyone has a parachute and everyone shoots lasers harmlessly over each other's heads. It seems. That said, like in this bleak world that we're currently living in, maybe that's what we need a little bit of. Like have GI Joe
definitely.
adventures that are just that, they're adventures. Sure, there are kind of playful stakes, like you want to stop this ruthless terrorist organization from ruling the world or demanding 1 billion US dollars, but no one's gonna die and everything's gonna be okay at the end. The good guys are gonna triumph over evil. Man, sometimes we
Make
need a
my
little bit of
monsters
that.
grow.
So,
That's such
guys,
a Power Rangers moment. Sorry.
oh, of course. But Power Rangers learnt it from cartoons like GI Joe. You know, no.
Uh, yes and no. Yeah. I
Yes
mean,
and no. Look,
obviously,
when you're talking
yeah.
live action, it's oh so easy to have giants and miniatures. But Destro got there first, man, with his various embiggening rays and things. Where do you suppose this cartoon series could go if it had a less limited run?
I'll tell you where I wanted to go. I wanted
Okay.
to cover everything between, the movie and Deke. I'd love it to do that.
Oh,
That's kind of what I'd love for them to do. I mean, that's a very basic knee-jerk response. Um, but I'd love for them to tell a story within its own continuity. I feel like that's the only true failing of Sunbow, is that it was a syndicated show, so the episodes didn't really follow in any kind of order. They just sort of came out all the time. I mean, they did come out in order, but they didn't have, if as you guys know, if Duke bumped his knee on the table in episode 1, he wouldn't have a bruise by episode 3. You know what I mean? He wouldn't be like, "Oh, remember that time I walked into a table?" Nobody would care. I would love to see like a continuity. To some degree, it would be cool if they referenced things like big moments, like the Weather Dominator or something like that. Um, and I'd love to see like there's a roster of Joes that I would love to see in that Sunbow style, and I'm talking
hmm.
about characters like 89 Snake Eyes and 88 Storm Shadow, and just to name two. It would be great to
Yeah, but
see
actual
Outback. You mentioned Outback
original
earlier.
characters, yeah. Outback,
Yeah.
Sneak Peek, the Rawhides. They were gonna be the kind of the leads, I suppose, if Sunbow went into a third season. So you'd have Falcon and Jinx and Chuckles, Strongman Chuckles, and Law and Order and Big Lob and Tunnel Rat. Like they were gonna be our little, core group of new characters.
Yeah,
But
that
hey, man, that's just the plague of GI Joe. Like the roster just expands far too quickly. How do you
but
how
that's
do you keep
also
people's interest up by having your Optimus Primes and your Prowls and your Jazzes while you have to throw in RC and Springer, Ultra Magnus? It's always the same case. Like the toy company's just gonna keep on making new toys.
Well, the cool thing is like one of Sunbow's strengths is that it always focused on one character in particular. Like it kind of put more emphasis on like airtight for an episode or
Mm.
Spirit for an episode. So it would be cool to see the comics doing that with the remaining roster, and then break into the 90s stuff. Like I wouldn't
But then do you
necessarily.
ditch the kind of comic book darlings? Oh, sorry, the cartoon darlings like Alpine and Bazooka. Characters that are second stringers but have a great chemistry and a great history on the Sunbow cartoon. Do you then ditch them in favor of like Big Lob and Tunnel Rat?
I think
Hmm?
you would have to. I think you would have to actually write out the series and see what happens with those characters. It's it's one of those things I don't think you can put too much you can't plan for it too much, you know. For example, you could introduce Lightfoot as a character in one of these episodes, and he could just be such a hit, the way that he's written, that people are like, you know, dear IDW, I really love the episode with Lightfoot. You know, I always used to think the toy was BB gun practice, but now he's my favorite character. You know what I mean? And there's Chris McLeod doing literal backflips, you know, going Lightfoot in a comic. You know.
Wait, what? People used it for BB gun practice? I'll hunt
Probably,
you
dude.
down.
Everybody hates Lightfoot, man. I don't know why. He's fun.
I don't mind him. He
No,
was
I don't mind him
absolutely
either.
an action figure that I used as a mask character because he had
Dude,
that
people
cool
are
removable
spoiled.
helmet.
They just didn't have Wild Boar, okay? I mean, I'm referring, of course, to a South African GI Joe channel that, and I was privy to this a few days ago, where somebody posted a picture of like absolute worst Joe ever, and it's Lightfoot, and I was like, no, sorry, no. And then I promptly then posted a picture of Wild Boar and that other idiot I can't stand, Monkey Wrench. Monkey. What's his name? That idiot. I don't even want to remember his name. He's the pilot. He's the driver for the Mean Dog. Him and also Major Altitude. I'm like, these are the worst. And then, and I shit you not, dudes. And I'm sorry if anybody on that group listens to this show. I'm sorry. I know this is going to be super judgy. But then a whole bunch of guys are like, oh, I love that character. He's my favorite. And I'm like, oh, it must be
Idiots.
difficult being blind in this world.
I didn't think Destro's Razorback made it to South Africa.
No,
So
he
why would
didn't.
people have an awareness of Wild Boar? You're going with these deep cuts, Paul. Not everyone on your bloody South African Facebook groups have a podcast and YouTube channel celebrating GI Joe, man. Not everyone.
No, they don't. But I mean, they're all like collectors. No, but they're all collectors, and these guys have actually got fairly eclectic Joe collections, you know? And it's just weird, like, when I see them, like, praise a figure like Wildcard. Ugh, I remembered his name now. You know? And I'm like, but why? Why do you like this toy? I don't understand. Good power to you, but why? You know? I just can't see it. But then again, they're also looking at Lightfoot and going, oh, it's the worst Joe ever. And I'm like, no, he's not. He comes from the 80s. He's cool. He
But
had
you-
lenticular accessories.
I know. 2 of them, even.
2 of them,
back-
Novel. Yeah, exactly.
Backpack and his little R2D2 robot.
And if you
But
lie him
Paul-
on his side, you could put him in a mask vehicle, like you said.
Nice. Thunderhawk sideways. But you prompted me to remember something that I wanted to raise and make a point of in this podcast. And this is actually like an almost desperate plea, but certainly something that like we as listen to this podcast and readers of the comic books should thrill at doing. And that's writing into IDW. Like, these comic books are currently in print. They're being created by a creative team that is currently drawing breath and drawing comic books. And they would love to get some feedback in the old school style. Okay, you don't have to snail mail it to them. You can write them an email to IDW Publishing. I'll actually put the email address in the description to this podcast. But they would love to hear
Tell
from
them
us.
G.I. Joburg. Tell them
Sent
G.I.
you.
Joburg told you to write a letter.
Well, feel free. But I would like to implore everyone reading this. Sorry, another Freudian slip. I would like to implore everyone watching this or listening to this to absolutely bombard IDW's G.I. Joe group with letters. Why the hell not? Let's have ourselves published in a G.I. Joe book. I mean, wouldn't that be the craziest thing of all? Like, I would often pore over those letters pages and wonder, that must be so cool to have your name in print, immortalized for all eternity in a G.I. Joe book. Well, the secret's out, guys. They are starved of correspondence these days. Like, it would not take much for you to get your letter published in a G.I. Joe book now. Just give it a chance. Like, give them a try. I'm pretty sure Larry would be thrilled to read it. I mean, they used to get so much mail in the 80s. Like, he would read everything, absolutely. But it was like sifting through massive amounts of physical letters. Like that would be a huge part of Larry's day. He would start his day with sorting the fan mail. Like he'd have a huge pile of no prize requests, a sort of medium pile of genuine questions and like praise letters, and then a tiny pile of much beloved stuff from actual kids saying like, who would win in a fight, Destro or Snake Eyes? Like stuff
Yeah.
like that. It just trips me out, man. And it just doesn't happen anymore. So we're not about to revisit the kind of opulence of those heydays of the 80s and early 90s, but we can at least like show the creative team that we're out there, because it's also easy. Like if we want to voice our opinion on a book, you no longer write into the book. You've got online forums, you've got podcasts and YouTube videos to either publish yourself or listen to and watch, and basically like have your opinions validated by the opinions of others. Like we no longer reach out to the actual creators anymore. And that's a shame, man. That's a dying art. So I'm gonna write them on the subject of this comic book, and I implore, well, firstly, you two gents, if you don't mind, but also anyone listening to this.
Who would
I'll
win in a
definitely do
fight,
it.
like sci-fi or Ripper? Probably Ripper.
Probably.
Yeah.
Or something I saw in the
main-
chats, which I absolutely adored. How long would it take Scarlet to destroy a megabat using only her crossbow?
Dude, I saw that. I think that was Darren Cobb.
Yeah, he said it at about 6 months, which would have been a great comeback. Oh my goodness, Darren, you should have written that gag into their book. Damn it.
Damn
Yeah.
it.
Damn it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they need
that's
you,
his
Railway.
comeback.
But Stephen, if this keeps on going, what do you want to see from this comic book series?
Oh, well, I'm along a similar vein to Paul. I'd love to progress the series into the Sunbow style. You know, bridge those gaps. The unseen years, the 87 team that was left out of the movie, and then the guys from 88 who, you know, people have a valid criticism of the 1988 series of GI Joes that they just don't have strong characterization. Well, there's a reason for that. They didn't have an animated 23-minute cartoon series to flesh out their characters and give them quirks. They're cool looking toys. They're a great series of action figures, but they just don't have any screen time. And the comic book didn't really help them much either. Like they were just pretty blandly written soldier guys, like very professional, and they got the job done, and they had a few issues that they kind of featured in, but didn't have the kind of quirks that I feel was the hallmark of the cartoon series. You know,
Yeah, true.
they made Airtight this nefarious nerd, and they made Bazooka like a lovable lunk, and they made, you know, they just gave everyone a type, a very bold choice, and that kind of made the character take life and stand up and walk around. You know, you've got to make those bold choices, and you've got to use animation as the medium to make it happen. I'd be very interested to see how they characterize Shockwave, for instance, because right now he's an absolute cipher. He's a blank slate character. Doesn't even have a face, unless you take Deke to be your your character sheet.
Dude, you know what could also be pretty interesting is if you took existing comic book stories, you know, and sunbowed them. You know, like I'm trying to like I'm thinking of that whole and I'm sorry if I'm gonna get this mixed up, but the whole Zartan infiltrating the pit, if that was done as a Sunbow style episode, you know, with the Sunbow versions of the GI Joes, not the comic book versions of them. I think that could be really, really cool. The chase through the street with the girl with the bubble gum. I'm trying to remember her name now.
Bonga the
She's
Balloon
dressed as a
Day?
bear. Yes, Bongo the balloon bear.
Candy Apple.
Candy Apple. There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
What a name.
But how cool would that be? I mean, that feels like it should be in a Sunbow episode, you know? Like I'd love to see some of that stuff kind of revisited. Like maybe in the Sunbow universe, they could be watching like a series called Action Force. Uh-oh. And in Action Force,
No,
it's
they
like,
won't.
No, they won't
Can't do that.
But no, they can't, because it depends. Let's see how Bobby feels. But because remember, it's not Hasbro; it's still GI Joe, and Bobby loves GI Joe. So, but like, yeah, they could be watching a show, and then the whole episode could be the show that they're watching, which is actually just an episode from the comic book that's been Sunbow-fied, with them, you know, replacing the roles of those characters in that show. I mean, that's like super meta. We're starting to get Hideo Kojima levels of a meta now in the Sunbowverse.
Taking a step back from meta, I think I've always been a strong proponent of letting the toys dictate the plots. So in a kind of a season 3 of Sunbow, like I know G.I. Joe went to space a number of times in seasons 1 and 2, but like this opportunity to start again afresh, do things almost a little bit retrospectively, now that we know the direction that the toy line took, we can better pace out the episodes and let as I say, the toys dictate its direction. So what was the big ticket item in 1987? It was the Defiant Launch Complex, and I would love
put that in a cartoon.
for that to be the central MacGuffin of the next miniseries. That it's a struggle to, well, it's G.I. Joe trying to have mastery of space, and they've got this incredible space complex that they are finishing the work on. And of course, Cobra's trying to sabotage it and undermine it, and in fact, capture it and have conquest of space for themselves. To make that the central point of your miniseries is a win-win for G.I. Joe fans, because it creates a plot line that we have an immediate connection to, because it involves toys that we love, instead of like something hokey and something external to G.I. Joe, like Aladdin's lamp. You know, it's great and it makes for a great plot driver, but like there's enough plot drivers within the toy line to get me fired up. And the second point is I just want to see all the toys in that style on the page.
Yeah. I think that's me too. Yeah.
So do it.
Yeah.
Do that. We've got some great suggestions in the chat. One I'd like to bring up is Mr. Hans Chow. Oh my god, a continuation of the alternate reality where G.I. Joe was destroyed and Grunt, Steeler, and Zap stayed behind with the Baroness to restart G.I. Joe in the Sunbow style. Yes, absolutely. Worlds Without End. Let's see what became of those guys.
Probably be
Did Steeler and Baroness punch out some kids and they became the future of the Resistance? I hope so.
Yeah.
Sounds.
Why not? I'm sure.
I'd love to revisit
There's
that.
no
I mean,
TV in the future.
one thing I love, if they could revisit that Toy Master dude. Like, I've always wanted a sequel to that episode. I absolutely love that episode. It'd be so cool. Like,
I would agree, as long as Baroness is in a bikini for the entire episode again. Thank you.
Hey, dude, as long as I see, like, it's going to sound so typical, but, like, I also really love those female Cobra Troopers, dude. I actually like the Worlds Without End female Cobra Troopers even more.
So, the Toy Master,
assless
like
chaps.
busts, like, like they're on, like, vacation on a beach or something, and he kidnaps a whole bunch of Cobra, like, officers and Baroness, and they're all in bikinis for the whole episode.
Dude, how cool would an episode with Lowlight, be? I mean, we see him for like, I think a whole 4 seconds in G.I. Joe the movie, and we see him a little bit in the Sunbow show because he's like, I'm afraid of the dark. But how cool would it be if like Cobra's like, my new troopers, Night Vipers. And then, you know, and then Lowlight has to like go and flex, and he's all like, oh, I can shoot Night Vipers as long as it's dark. I can shoot anything in nighttime. You know, kind of thing. You know, that could be a lot of fun too. I mean, I went down the rabbit hole with ideas for this. I was like, I mean, I had one idea, and Steve, this is partially inspired by you, but and also partially inspired by pretty much the only GoBots episode I can remember, where like somehow the GI Joes get shrunk
GoBots.
into toy scale.
Oh,
You know?
okay. Cobra Claws are coming to town. Is that it? No.
Cobra Claws. Oh yeah, hey. What
Isn't
was
that where the like this mini rattlers and fangs and fire bats and whatever, and it's all smuggled into Joe headquarters in a sack, like Santa
Yes,
Claus's
because like
toy sack?
yes, like presents. Yeah,
I vaguely
yeah.
remember it. Yeah.
Because I'd love to see more of that kind of thing. That could be quite fun. I love it when it's like I think it's just because
Well,
it's
we
a
were
cartoon
thinking of doing
based
a
on a
play
toy.
motion, weren't we? Where we had
Yes.
like the house in 1-to-1 scale, and literally the Joes had been shrunken down. They were having to clamber on top of the kitchen counter, and oh, look out! The hot plates are on. The traps everywhere. Someone put the toaster on. I've fallen
Yeah, like
in.
backyard battles. Yeah, that's kind of
Exactly
where we were
right.
going with that. And where we might still go, I don't know. We have so many ideas that we're trying to pull off. I mean, I even had Rulof the other day get hold of me, asking me like, when are we going to do the next one? Because him and Mark had some time off,
Oh.
and they wanted to know if they, if they could shoot some footage. And I'm like, I don't know which one we're doing. So yeah, so that's got to happen.
Roloff,
But
don't
I
you
mean,
mean
that's one
Ronald?
idea. Yes, sorry, Ronald. Yes, sorry, dude. Did I say Rulof?
You got South Africans on the brain, my bro.
I have South Africans on the brain, yeah. And then another idea I kind of had was, I kind of this was this was quite funny. I'm sure a lot of you guys saw this on Facebook. Somebody posted a picture of a lot of adventure people from Fisher Price, and in the middle of all of those people is a leatherneck, in his like giraffe pants. And I got excited seeing that because I was like, wow, look at Bazooka, infiltrating, and true Paul style, infiltrating the Fisher Price adventure people. And I had a good laugh at that because I was referencing that whole undercover idea I had for a TV show for him. And then I was corrected in that, no, that's actually Leatherneck. And then I felt like a real goofball. But then I was like, but wait, still, maybe it's Bazooka disguised as Leatherneck, disguised as a normal person in the adventure people world. But anyway, the long story from that, the short version of that is, I still think it would be cool if you actually had not just Bazooka now, but Bazooka and Leatherneck in this like sort of fictional town where something weird is going down, and they're two GI Joes that are in this town, very much like the Springfield comic. Who I think it's Clutch that goes to see his family on holiday or something, and the whole town has secretly been taken over by Cobra.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Back
there's a cool
in
like
Jersey.
sequence with a bug in there. And I thought, hey, that would actually be really rad if it was like Leatherneck and Bazooka, but in a Sunbow style, in the the Sunbow version of them, because they're so large.
Oh wait, you're talking about the one where Mutt goes back to his hometown.
Yes, it's Mutt. Yeah, sorry.
Millville, I think, New Jersey as well.
Yeah, but dude, that would still be cool, even if you now had to add Mutt to the mix. Hey, like Battle Force, Battle Core Mutt to the mix of Battle Core Leatherneck and Battle Core Bazooka. I'd love to see that episode in Sunbow as well. That could be fun.
Look, in terms of the immediate, I'm gonna make a prediction, guys. So there's a mega bat deployed. Chances the Eiffel Tower is gonna survive the encounter. 0. I think they're gonna take out the Eiffel Tower. I also think in Tokyo they're gonna take out Tokyo Tower, and they're probably going to destroy the Washington Monument in DC. And so Duke's gonna have to use 3 wishes at the end of the miniseries to resurrect all these fallen monuments.
How cool would it be? I mean, like Tokyo Tower always gets taken down in like Godzilla and stuff as well. It's like Mothra or whatever will like pop up.
So
or King
typical.
Ghidorah.
Like GI Joe's gonna win the individual battles, but like the cities are gonna be wrecked. They're gonna be in ruins. So Cobra will have won the day in that sense. But I'm pretty sure like GI Joe's gonna get hold of the lantern and put everything right, and then lock it away for use in another Deus Ex Machina situation.
Yeah, like put it in the same place as the Ark of the Covenant or something. But I was watching this thing on Netflix. It was Hollywood cliches or the movie cliches. Like just look up movie cliches. It's a whole thing. It's a whole like little movie-mentary thing on Hollywood cliches, and they actually have footage from the GI Joe movie where the Eiffel Tower gets taken out, and they they just kind of mention how they love killing and taking out the Eiffel Tower in movies. And so as soon as you said that, my first thought was like, oh yeah, they should do that. It's like proper cliche. Also, it'd be great if Godzilla popped out of nowhere, like, "Arr! Where's Gas?"
We've got a request from the chats. Hans Chow wants to know what Duke's 3 wishes would be. And now I've already weighed in. It would be to resurrect the Washington Monument, the Eiffel Tower, and Tokyo Tower. But outside of that, gentlemen, what would Duke wish for?
That Snake Eyes doesn't exist. In the Sunbow universe.
3 Scarlets.
Ace stops crashing his airplanes.
Yeah, he stopped. If he could stop being kidnapped ever again, like if he was never ever kidnapped by Cobra again, that would be great. And I think the third one would be if Falcon could not develop a drug problem. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Or,
Gotta keep my brother safe.
there you go.
or that he wouldn't have to salute Falcon, perhaps. I mean, man, it's always that awkward thing, man, between the two brothers. But yeah, Rob, do you have anything to add? Do you want?
Oh, I think yeah. Stop
No.
crashing those airplanes. I mean, Paul's suggestion of never getting kidnapped again is fantastic. He's always the one getting kidnapped. I mean, like, how
He
does
is.
that keep happening to him?
He's the blonde. Dude.
This is too many toes. But he's the one.
All right, let's close the chapter on this first part of Saturday Morning Adventures. Thank you, IDW, for taking the plunge and doing it.
Yeah,
I look
thank
forward
you,
to reading
guys.
the other 3. And I obviously give it my highest recommendation to anyone sitting out there scratching their heads wondering what the hell have those GI Joburg guys been talking about for the last hour and 15 minutes. Yeah, get a copy. It's good stuff.
Oh, this is cool. Sorry, Hans's top comment here was great. Snake Eyes out of existence. Paul and I were on the same wavelength. You know it, bro. Duke wants Scarlet all to himself. Oh.
So we got some great fan mail in the last week. Well, I don't know if I can call it fan mail. It's mainly just a fan of the show, a friend of the show. Lance Toth shared a piece of artwork, which I absolutely adore. It's a
Oh,
hiss
wow.
tank cresting a hill.
Show us.
And beneath it, we've got Spirit, Roadblock, and I think Airborne. No, it's Duke. And yeah, man, it's a very desperate situation. It's done up in pencils.
Oh, wow.
Stunning,
Sorry.
stunning artwork.
I just saw it. I looked up. Wow. I carry
Well,
on. Steve,
look
I'm
up,
sorry.
Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah,
We
isn't it amazing?
love seeing what the fan community produces, and it's super, super impressive. So thank you, Lawrence, for sharing this with us. It's just totally unsolicited. There's no text in the email. He just sends me an image. It's like, there you go, Steve.
Approved.
much
I love
appreciated,
that
man.
angle. cool is that
you don't see
angle,
it
like-
much.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. It's got such great drama.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's a
for this,
desperate
Lance.
situation
Seriously,
for the
dude.
Joes. But I just thought, like, if you are firing at a hiss from a low angle like that, surely that's the weakest point of the hiss, like the underside. Well, apart from the glass canopy and the absolute no protection for the gunner, but like outside of that, shooting its soft belly, you probably have a chance of coming out of this encounter alive.
Yeah, but it'll still fall on you. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
Those are some big ass treads to be engulfed by. Damn. Rob, have you got anything you'd like to pull from the previous recording session? I know you guys were having power issues, but if there's any comment that you'd like to highlight, we are doing that now. Rob, once a week, will pull his favorite comment from the previous week's podcast YouTube comments thread. Try and say that 5 times fast.
You have been
And
warned.
And he will
Again.
pull it into the show for us to scrutinize, have a
thankfully-
laugh about.
once again, I have 2 to do because obviously with
Ooh.
not being here last week, I get to do the previous episode too. So for episode 240, turncoats. Oh wait, I'm looking at the thumbnail. I just realized that's a really cool thumbnail. Turncoats is turned upside down.
Oh,
Nice.
thank you. I do try.
I like Outback Stew says, good show, guys. They need to make a tiger that transforms into Outback.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty fucking good. And I see and then the comments from last week's episode, no one mentioned me not being there. I was very upset about that. Nobody, and actually a pretty straightforward comment section. Very few comments so far. Action Robot Punch appreciated that we were introduced to Talking Joes. He knows on a previous Joburg shows we've heard you talk to Chief about figures, but I didn't realize he'd started a show discussing the comic, and that was an ongoing thing. I'm going to go check it out and sub for sure. I loved getting the GI Joe comic when I was a kid.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it because I sometimes lose sight of the fact that like podcasts can be pretty insular at times, but we've always tried to speak as highly of the rest of the GI Joe podcast community as possible, and absolutely the guys from Talking Joe do a fabulous job. Their coverage is very, very comprehensive, almost second to none. They're peerless in their approach. They've done the entire A-Raw continuity. Okay, you can find a podcast on absolutely anything published by Marvel Comics between 1982 and 1994. But in addition to that, they are doing the continuation of the run into the IDW years. They're even doing the Devil's Due publishing stuff. So, as I say, there is not a more comprehensive, complete list of reviews of old comic books and even current comic books. They are so on top of it that they are one-to-one with current releases. As a comic book comes out for G.I. Joe, they review it on the show. That's, as I say, peerless. No one else is kind of keeping up. No one else is current with the continuity like they are. So they get my highest recommendation as well. And hey, you might even hear my voice in some of the older episodes.
Hey.
Oh dear.
And while I've got the mic, I just want to quickly just shout out a happy birthday.
Taking the mic. Taking it back.
I just want to do a small happy birthday shout out to Carson Metaxas of 3D Joes. Happy birthday, dude. I don't know if you actually listen to us, but our wishes are out there for you. And another very cool G.I. Joe human being has had his birthday recently, and that is HCC. So, yeah, happy birthday, dude.
Brian. Yeah, man.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I hope you had a great one.
Birthday, dudes.
So, and guys, if I know they're happening, then I'll shout them out. If I don't shout out your birthday, I'm sorry. It's just probably because I didn't know about it, okay? But I just thought
no, Paul, you've set the precedent now. I want birthday wishes every episode. Everybody.
Everybody
tangentially connected to this podcast.
Yeah, they're gonna get their birthdays. But yeah, I just thought that was cool because I just thought it was his birthday the other day, both Carson and HCC, and I was like, oh, rad! Happy birthday, dudes. Anyway, yeah, so I had to throw that out there. Anyway, what were we talking about again? Cool messages, cool mails from...
You got some new shit, dude.
I got some new shit. Okay, so I want to do it this way because I'm not expecting to get any new shit for a month or 2 or 3 months. I would like to space out my new stuff, and I definitely want to talk about one of the cool things that arrived. I got a lot of cool stuff recently. Well, yeah, it's a lot. It's like about 4 or 5 figures, but the figures I want to talk about today, and these I feel are the most topical right now, is this bad boy. I've got my retro O-Ring Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow have arrived from the States. Thank you very much to Bart for holding on to them for me because I had to ship them to his house. And guys, I gotta say, they are pretty awesome toys. Now, I don't want to go into too much of a review here because I am actually busy in the I'm in the process of like shooting footage and making a little review for them. I've just been having a lot of fun playing with them and sort of just recording my thoughts while I've been doing so. So I don't know if it's so much a review as it is just me talking over footage of me playing with them. But anyway, whatever's. Really, really like these. Very, very cool toys. Definitely, I mean, just off the top of my head right now, just some things that are worth mentioning. If you haven't gotten these guys before, one thing that you're going to notice, they definitely do feel different. I mean, that's something we've spoken about on the show quite a few times. Stephen has definitely pointed out the whole will it pass the touch test? Well, if you're trying to convince somebody that these are legitimate vintage figures, no, they're not going to pass the touch test. But the touch test that they do pass is that they feel good. They feel fun. They feel like they're easy to play with. They don't feel like they're going to break too easily. I mean, obviously, just, be careful with them anyway. But the thumbs feel pretty good. They feel quite rubbery, which is nice. So you don't freak out putting the weapons in them. And that's quite great. That's something that I really like a lot about them. Also, this is my first Snake Eyes version 1. I've never had Snake Eyes version 1 before. I don't have Snake Eyes version 1. And now I finally have Snake Eyes version 1. And it's a cool feeling. The other cool thing that came with this, obviously, Storm Shadow is in this package as well. As soon as the picture decides to actually upload, because it's apparently massive. Storm Shadow I have one or two little gripes with, personally, but all in all, it's great to have a Storm Shadow to play with, to take around, the house and, fight imaginary bad guys, and I don't have to worry about his crotch breaking or his thumbs popping off or, him genuinely just breaking or dying or being scared of dropping him, and he can hold his swords, which is pretty awesome, actually. So that is a small win. They have done a few small changes, something I'll talk about in the review a bit more, but seeing as you're with me, the backpack has got some major changes. I don't dislike them. I just think they're odd choices, and I'll go into that in the review. And then I thought something that I thought was kind of odd between the two figures actually was Storm Shadow's paint apps, like for, to cover up the little rivets. I feel are quite sloppy compared to what they did with Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes, you can't really see them in the shot, but the way that they've covered up the rivets, like they've painted the rivets black, they pulled that off better than what they did with Storm Shadow. With Storm Shadow, it just looks a bit splotchy. I thought that was a little bit of a not so cool thing to do, but hey, whatever's. They're good enough to play with. The extra accessories, take them or leave them. They unfortunately give you the worst version of 89 Snake Eyes' sword, which is the one that came with, I don't know if you guys remember Valor vs. Venom. Of course you do. It brings back PTSD for many of us. But they give you the Valor vs. Venom Snake Eyes sword, which is lame, because it just is. It's lame, it's flimsy, it's gonna break, it's got a fat handle, it's not cool. But everything else is actually pretty fun. Yeah, and anyway, guys, enjoy the pictures, because these have been really, really awesome. It's been great playing with these toys again. Oh, and be careful, guys, if you are going to get them, please be so careful with the stands. I know that they've re-engineered the feet a little bit to fit with the stands, but I don't fully trust the stands yet. And I also feel like in the case of Snake Eyes, his right foot fits in the peg, but the left foot not so much. And yeah, so I've just been having fun with this and making fun of the box.
These are great pictures, and they look like really good figures too. I'm looking forward to that
thanks,
review.
Dude. Yeah, they just it. I understand why people love this version of Snake Eyes, and this Uzi. Oh my word! Like, one thing I gotta say: if you have absolutely no intention of being excited about the O-Ring re-released figures, like if you're not in intention, if you look at these and you go, oh, they're not for me, I've got the originals, I'll be okay, I'll live, it's totally cool. But if you want some fantastic accessories, like really high class versions of these Uzis, then I don't know if the price of the box warrants buying it purely just for Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow's gear, but for me it kind of does because the gear is so well sculpted and so well molded. It's sharply detailed. It's beautiful. As
Hang
you
on, are
can
you
see in
talking
these
about the
shots.
additional box or
No,
the additional bubble
both.
space allotted to
Both.
the?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so both.
but Paul, you just said like some of the additional accessories are absolute pants, like
yes,
the
no, I'm
89
talking
Snake Eyes
about that.
sword.
Yeah, like that's the stuff. So what I meant with the additional stuff was the 89 Snake Eyes stuff. I feel it's whatever's. Take it or leave it. I don't think it's that great. But the additional, like the additional set of nunchucks that you get, and the additional Uzi that you get for Snake Eyes, that kind of makes it worth it for me. Because now you have a very high quality, sharply molded Uzi to go with your version 1 Snake Eyes if you have one lying around in desperate need of a good looking Uzi.
Look, the
Or if you
criticism
like,
that I see most commonly is that people are enjoying this O-ring relaunch, but not at the price that it currently commands. Because effectively, what those additional accessories are doing is padding out the perceived value to make you part with as much money for these O-rings as you would for a classified figure.
true.
That's effectively what's happening here. And it's like, can we just rather, get rid of the collector's box and the additional accessories, just give us the standard presentation on a card for a few bucks less? And Hasbro says, that's not how we're doing it. We're going to give them
Yeah.
to you 2 at a time in this collector's box with some additional bits of plastic in the bottom and demand. Okay.
Yeah, and some-
Maybe they would give you a Megatron pistol with the forthcoming Cobra Commander and Duke pack. Who knows?
Possibly.
Anyways, like that is the criticism with this O-ring relaunch, is that, well, firstly, it's only available through Hasbro Pulse. We want more widespread availability, but also just the fact that the prices are jacked because of these extras that no one really asked for. Some
Yeah.
people enjoy. Some people know that it's just going to go straight into the drawer, never see the light of day.
Yeah, I
The
think
only
they're
thing-
approaching it from a very different collector's perspective. Because the thing with GI Joe is that the original line was so huge, and we all own, or most of us all own, a lot of figures, a lot of accessories, a lot of stuff, a lot of variety. So when you bring out a new O-ring line, what do people want? I think variety. You want to see all of these characters again, brand new, feeling new. You want them fresh and new.
But what
Yeah,
you
it's
don't
nice to
want
have
is
variety.
additional accessories.
You
that are
don't
just
need any of that
clutter.
necessarily. They could essentially release these figures with just the figures, maybe with the original accessories, or maybe different
Yes.
accessories, and then you're fine. You don't have to go crazy with exclusive packaging, because the thing is, we want all the characters. The thing is, also, with all these companies bringing out these GI Joe stuff, it's not GI Joe, it's Snake Eyes and it's Storm Shadow. That's what all these
Yeah.
companies are doing. They're doing a Snake Eyes, their version of Snake Eyes, and their version of Storm Shadow, like they do with big superhero characters like Batman. You can find a different version of Batman from hundreds of different companies, and you can choose the version that you want. But GI Joe is, as I think I've always said, it's a team thing. It's about the roster. It's the variety of characters that you can get and play with, and the vehicles, obviously, as well. So what people want is variety. We don't want to have to pay out of our noses for the same figures that we already own in new fancy packaging, which we're just going to throw away.
Well, on the note of the packaging, I loved this point that Adam Riches made on the most recent Full Force Monthly, when he said that the bubbles themselves, like Hasbro's all about cutting down on their plastic usage. But the bubbles on these retro cards are so extra. Like they're bigger. They've got an inner, you've got the original bubble, but then, and that's kind of bulked out quite far. Reason being, they've sitted the figure into an additional sort of secondary tray of plastic, which give them these strange, love me arms, because they're kind of slightly posed forward, which is hilarious. But it's
Oh
so
my
much extra
God.
plastic where all
look
we
like
want
mummies.
for that
Yeah.
true retro experience is just chuck the figure into a nice slim fitting single
Box.
bubble.
That's how we
No.
got it
So-
in the 80s and in the 90s. Literally, it was not molded to the figure. The figure
Yeah.
went into a generic little plastic piece. Okay, maybe the piece where the accessories are in is slightly different because it depends on how many accessories they come with. But then
Is the
card,
problem is the perception that like Hasbro would then like the execs would be like, no, that looks tacky. The figure's kind of off to the side, he's at a diagonal slant. We need the figure kind of rigidly pre-posed in the packaging. Is that the thinking modern toy companies have?
God, I don't even know. I think when they think of vintage toy licenses or like legacy things where they're reproducing things for nostalgia's sake, they do start to think, okay, these people are older, they can afford to buy these things at a higher price point because of the nostalgia factor. But our nostalgia also stretches back to getting things more so the way they were. Not just getting the toy to look the same, but we maybe wanted more the way how we used to get it. I mean, that's always a thing that I've always wanted to be able to do, is go into a toy shop and actually buy my favorite characters again. I want that experience. It's not just about them being in a fancy packaging. Like, I just want to be able to see this toy at my local toy shop, or even at the bloody Pick and Pay or the grocery place, and just be able to like take it off the shelf and have that experience for myself. You're going to make so much more money if you just make them as cheaply as possible, like you used to do. Mass produce them, send them out into the world, and you're going to make money off it. Off the people who love G.I. Joe and the people who want to love G.I. Joe.
We're going down the rabbit hole right now.
But anyway,
Yeah,
came
I
here
was
to
just
talk
gonna
about
say,
comic
like,
books. But absolutely right, and I do want to address this in the chats just very quickly. Ryan,
yes, yeah,
he says that we might have the wrong end of the story here. The packaging and accessories are made from existing tooling, and they currently have, with the exception of Storm Shadow's backpack. That the $40 cost is from the new tooling and the fact that they're not producing the volume they used to. Also, I don't think any chain retailer wants O-rings right now. Absolutely, this is so niche.
Yeah, that's the other side of the coin. It's like, obviously I want this full experience that we had when we were kids, when everyone was kids. But what he's brought up there is quite true. It has become a very niche thing, and to be able to, I suppose, justify even making them, they have to put that higher price point on them.
Well, cover the cost of making them. I don't know. Look, we're not going to see the kind of widespread distribution that we saw with like retro Ghostbusters or retro Star Wars, He-Man. Sure. Is the faith in GI Joe retro at retail that low? I don't know.
I think
we'll never know.
I think GI Joe still
Very
has to build a
conservative.
lot of. I think it has to build a lot of retail. What's the word? Retail faith.
Faith, I suppose, or like recognition.
Again, yeah.
But it's difficult because they keep taking weird steps with the tie-in properties, like the movies and things. So obviously it's more difficult for retailers. But anyway,
and yet
really
Classified has weathered the storm. Like, movie be damned, Classified has never done better. Like, the 6-inch, by all accounts, is exploding. But anyways, this is definitely tangential, and I'm gonna hold back on the Super 7 teaser reveal. But basically, the next Ultimates is going to be Storm Shadow, and it seems they have adopted a comic book inspired styling for him, because he's definitely showing off an Arashikage tattoo a la issue 21. But hey, play the character's best hits, and let's face it, Storm Shadow's best hits weren't necessarily in the cartoon series.
The ninja is a weapon.
But that is our show, gentlemen.
Oh, because I wanted to mention one more thing about the retro O-rings. No.
Talk about it. One more thing.
One more thing. Guys, something I do, you mentioned the whole thing with the big blisters. When you take them out of that packaging, you definitely get the feeling that they're designed to stand upright so that you can put them on your shelf or something and display them. Because they've brought the blister down to the foot of the
so it
card.
stands up.
so it stands up.
Interesting.
So yeah, so I feel like that's kind of the intention there. The card back is very soft. It's very much like the retro modern era, the so-called retro line that GI Joe have done with the modern repackaging. It's so confusing. Thank you, Hasbro, for that. Anyway, it's the same quality card, more or less, maybe a little bit firmer. But something I do want to mention, and this is a serious pet peeve for me. And I know why Hasbro is doing this. And Mauler Joe, and thank you, Mauler Joe, for actually having this on your channel, because knowing that it was coming my way actually softened the blow quite a bit. And I'm hoping that this helps a lot of our listeners and viewers with this, if you are going to buy these figures. Guys, the ports for the back peg, for the backpacks, are slightly different in size. Okay, they are. It's weird. I don't know. I can't tell you if they're bigger or smaller, because for some backpacks they kind of work, and for others they don't. Now, I know a lot of us are not going to sit there and switch a whole bunch of different backpacks onto our GI Joes and whatevers, but for guys like myself who really wanted to put Storm Shadow on the claw, the fact that he doesn't fit on the claw is a major rub. Okay, that really irritates me, for this retro O-ring line. I understand that Hasbro's kind of trying to do it so that they can. I'm hoping that they're doing it because they're trying to stop people from buying these figures and then selling them off as vintage figures on eBay and whatever's. At least that's what makes the most sense in my mind. That they're trying to be careful with that, and they don't want to get backlash from fans and things. But I just think that was a really dumb thing. Like, if there was one thing that you didn't have to change the size of that, Hasbro, and I really hope that going forward with these, you correct that, because the fact that I can't put that backpack onto my vintage Storm Shadow, that kind of bugs me. So just as much as I'm like excited at the prospect of having really cool resculpted accessories for these toys, especially if you've maybe got a V1 Snake Eyes and you've never been able to get an Uzi, the fact that you get two with this package means that you got one for your new one and one for your vintage one. That kind of thing is great, but on the other hand,
$40 accessory pack.
A $40 accessory pack. But on the other hand, the backpacks are not going to fit, and that is going to bug people. I'm surprised I haven't seen more backlash on the internet about that. Honestly, that's like literally my only thing. The price personally doesn't bug me. I don't mind the fact that technically I paid $20 a figure for these. Why don't I mind that? Because He-Man Origins stuff ranges between $14 and $18 depending on the figure, if it's a deluxe or a standard. And I know that it's more plastic, but it doesn't bug me. I'm kind of expecting to pay that. Reaction figures cost the same price, and you get more out of these technically. So I'm okay with the $20 price tag. I feel like it would be stupid if they were more than that, for example. But anyway, I feel like that's a conversation we can definitely have more of in the future when more of these come out. So that's all I wanted to say.
You've been listening to episode 242 of GI Joburg. If you'd like to get hold of the show, there's a very easy way to do that. You can get a hold of us at any place with social. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. We got a group and a page. Hey, but if you want to send us a love letter in the form of an email, bam,
that will be read.
That will be read on the episode. The address is arealsouthafricanhero@gmail.com. It'll be in the link description. It'll be in the links. It'll be in the description. I always screw this up. It'll be in the description down below. Or
can we also
if you want to become part of our awesome Berg Force, we do have a Patreon. If you'd like early access to this episode and every episode in the future, or if you'd like to join our live studio audience, you can join these fine folks over at the GI Joburg Patreon, aka the Berg Force, for as little as $3 a month.
member, Brian Nichols. Welcome to the Berg Force, dude.
Brian.
Welcome
to the
Brian.
madness. Yes, it does indeed go some way to keeping the lights on in GI Joburg HQ, except of course when the national grid goes down, in which case no amount of Patreon dollars is going to help South Africa.
Actually, it is going towards me getting a personal power station for the studio, so
I
that
take it
doesn't
back.
happen again.
Oof, wow,
Nice.
there we go.
Yeah.
The country may
Just
be without
saying.
power, but GI Joburg keeps on trucking. Thank you, Bergforce. Thank you for supporting the show, and thank you, listeners and watchers of this podcast, for also supporting our show in your likes, your subscriptions, your downloads, your hits. Not that I ever sweat the numbers, but it's nice to know that you're out there. And thank you also to all the commentators. I love the kind of dialogue we have in the comment section below. So keep it up. If you have a bone to pick with us, voice your concerns. If we got it wrong, tell us. If we got it right, tell us. If you'd like to just say, have a nice day, tell us.
Absolutely.
And remember, Gary Busey is a honey badger. Thank you, Hans, for that one. And more of that madness in the after party, which you guys can join on the Discord if you are part of the Bergforce. So,
Hey!
hey.
Sales plug over. The most skippable part of any podcast. But it's been a pleasure being in your company. Once again, we will catch you next week. My name is Steve. I'm out.
Out! Get out of here! And I'm Paul. Ninja vanish!
I'm Rob. I'm just gonna step away. Goodbye.
Berg.
Berg.